Welcome to Coffee Talk, real stories from real people. I'm your host, Kate Coffey-Bacon, and every Monday we'll sit down for honest conversations about successes, failures, and the lessons we learn from both. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's talk. Welcome back to Coffee Talk. I am Kate Coffey-Bacon, and today we are diving into a conversation about community and the power of diversity. My guest is someone who lives and breathes this every single day. We all know him. We all love him, Bobby Small.
Okay, yeah.
Where?
This is somebody behind me? I don't know.
So happy that you're here. I've been looking forward to this Coffee Talk probably since I launched Coffee Talk. I was like,
me too.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. All right, let me introduce you. Bobby is the Community Strategy Director at Doug, where he helps people connect across the Microsoft Dynamics 365 and Power Platform ecosystem. Is that right?
Broad, yes. It's a broad,
Okay.
it's a mouthful, but that's it. You gotta include
No
everybody.
fake news here. No fake news.
That's it.
He believes our communities thrive when every voice is heard and valued. Bobby, I'm so thrilled that you are here. I'm going to ask you, put you on the spot. What's something fun or surprising about you that most people doesn't know?
Fun or surprising that most people don't know?
Yeah.
That's a good. I mean, I'm kind of an open book, so it's hard to find something like that. But not everybody knows me. And one of my fun. I'm not going to ruin this for anybody that ever plays this game now. But you've heard of the game Two Truths and a Lie. You play this, and so one of my fun ones that I like to throw in there is that I act on the side. I'm a local theater participant, love it, love being in the theater. In my very first role that I was awarded, I beat my 9-year-old daughter out for the part, and so I like to weave that into the tale. It was for Charlotte's Web, and I was cast as Wilbur, the lead role, and my daughter was also trying out for, along with every other 9-year-old girl, in that age range. So I just crushed all their hopes and dreams. So that's what you do. I will crush the hopes and dreams of a 9-year-old actor in a minute for a part. That's what you don't know about me. That's how
Wilbur.
That's how deep I go. I'm serious, man.
Slow clapping for you. Here's a fun fact I'll share that most people don't know about me. I was a clown in a rodeo circus when I was 5 years old.
Wow. Hope you weren't like distracting the bull. Hopefully they didn't like put 5-year-old to distract the bull.
No, we came out before.
Okay.
It was like probably running around with a puppy or something. And later that night, I was trampled by pigs.
There's pigs are serious, man. They don't play games.
Serious.
Yeah.
There's some fun facts.
Emotional scarring from that still, like when you see a pig, when you eat bacon, when you say your last name, do you immediately go flashback to that trampling scene in your mind?
Really facing that fear, it's now a part of me.
Bring it on.
No, I do remember sitting on a fence, like in the corrals, and I was goofing off, and I fell backwards onto the ground as they were ushering the pigs through the push through there and out onto the main rodeo. And I was in the way. And I got stepped on a little bit, and then some, cowboy reached down and plucked me out.
Nice.
That's a true story, folks. If you ever played Two Truths and a Lie, you got some inside scoops. I'm like you, Bobby. I don't really have there's not a lot. Like you have, you know me for six minutes and you know everything about me. So
nothing's super secret.
No. Okay. So let's dive into the show. So you are such a champion for diversity, and you've really come in and you're doing some really great things with diversity. What first inspired you to be a champion for diversity here in this community?
So I trace that back to, there was an awareness as an executive and a person starting to attend meetings at an organizational level across multiple folks that I couldn't pinpoint it, but a couple of things that come to mind when you say that I went back to that were kind of the genesis for me. I have 2 daughters, which certainly sets you in a mindset if you're paying attention to that. Just started to see stuff in the boardroom, that whatever the quote unquote boardroom, that just started to feel unsettling. And I take it even a step back further. When I went back to school, or went to school, when I went to college, it was later in life. And I had like these large blocks of time between classes or riding the bus to and from campus from where I was living. And I just started reading a ton. And I think it was an enlightenment period for me, opening my mind up to some of these things in the world that I just kind of by default ignored, in my own little bubble. And so I was never on a far side, like not an extremist, like, oh, I better change my ways. But I just wasn't paying attention, I think, for the most part. And so I started to be more attentive. And then as I made it through again, these boardroom scenarios where I started to see these things happening, things like back to your pig story, indelible stories that I'll never forget. Being in a room where the manager or whomever was asking the room of other managers, either peer or below, for input about something, and just hearing comments like, and this is a male, saying, "Hey, what do you think, Kate?" And then Kate saying, "Blah blah 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 blah," and him going, "Oh, that's cute. What do you think?" And it was like you wouldn't say that to a
Triggered.
guy, and you just wouldn't say that. You wouldn't dismiss it that way. And other things that I've heard now repeated to me about co-oping, I started to think back, like, wow, yeah, I remember that. Like a female enters the conversation with an idea, and by the time it makes it around the boardroom, Jim over here is awarded the golden star for a great idea that he didn't even start. And then this person doesn't feel comfortable speaking up. So I've heard that story and then thought back to, yeah, I've seen that happen in front of me. So those were some of the moments, like historically, that started to build this awareness. And then, to be honest, the really the catalyst for me recently was the luncheon at Summit in 2024, the Women in Tech lunch that Marie Weiss put on, along with other folks, some great speakers. And the things that resonated with me, there was a great group of folks at the table with me. It was predominantly women. There was maybe, I think I saw one other gentleman in the room. It was an open invite though. So there's like a couple of us, and Marie saying, "Hey, we need more male advocates, more male allies, more male voices to step up in these rooms, in these moments, to be there, for support." And so that for me was like, that was the divining rod. That's when I said, I've got a pulpit, I've got a platform where I can step up and perpetuate and provide foundation and really a space, to be honest, just for me to get out of the way, but for other folks to have a voice. And so that was kind of what I stepped into when I got to Doug and had the opportunity to have a podcast and start interviewing and bringing voices on. So that's to me was the catalyst, and that's brought me to where I am today, which is just continue to expand and be more comfortable and open and honest in this area.
I was a young business owner, a solo entrepreneur, on my own business for 10 years. Being a woman never slowed me down, or I never thought, "Oh, I can't do this because I'm a woman." That was never part of my story. And so when I kind of came into, what I'll call corporate America, like a bigger workforce, working around other people, and I started to see some of these stories of women that were kind of held back in their careers. And I was just like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so not that I was ever want to be naive to it, because I don't. It happens. It is happening. So I kind of made it my mission, Bobby, to be a voice, to be a open arm, to help communities, to give us a place to talk about things that I have said so many times. If something is difficult to talk about, I am running headlong into that storm, and we're going to talk about it.
Yeah.
So I have partnered with the Women in Tech Luncheon this year at Community Summit and have written out their programming. So thrilled to step into that space and offer women a place in stories that they can see themselves and be encouraged, and find mentors they can ask questions to. I love what you're doing. It's just Doug in general it's such a warm hug. Like you walk in the room and it's so fun, and everything about it just feels fun and light. And then we get down in the weeds and we learn and we do it all together. And it's just what a great place that you have helped create in the community for inclusive learning. Looking at this kind of inclusive approach that you've taken, is there a time when maybe an inclusive approach helped change an outcome of a project that you've been on, or a community initiative?
Yeah. And I wanted to reflect quickly too on your comment about Doug. I mean, that starts from the top. So, the folks that own Doug, John and Jake, set a precedent and a tone. that allowed Molly and Liz, who just moved on to do their own thing, to set a tone. And that, that just, all this flows downward. So it's, that's why it's not just one person, it's the organization. And so that makes it special. And it allows that space for us to have this, ability to go out and bring people into conversations. So that's, I mean, that's in a broad scale, in a broad sense, that's a macro answer to your question about how does doing this, what's the impact? The impact is we've seen and felt this now throughout the community in lots of ways, people stepping up with us, through online meetups to tell their story and feel free to tell their story and feel like they've got a place to even sit and listen. These folks who maybe have been in a technically marginalized situation where they don't feel like you did growing up. Hey, you kind of had some success and didn't feel this before you kind of saw the other side and pulled the curtain back a little bit and allow them to play some catch up with the rest of the world that's been dominated by other factors. So the other story that comes to mind, and it's not necessarily a project or anything, but it was, again, I would say another pivotal moment where I realized there's just some crappy shit going on, pardon, that I needed to be more aware of. And I was hired a ton of people, and especially in the tech industry for 20 years, spent in a high hiring cycle. And for the first large portion of it, very rarely saw a female applicant didn't matter if it was tech support or network administration or developer or any of those roles. It was rare to find a female applicant, and started to see some. And then one of the first females that I hired, her story just resonated. We went through the process, and I felt like she was the right hire, but there was a couple of strong candidates. There were two people in particular, and I wanted some additional information. So I called up both and just asked a little bit of, kind of scratched a little bit more at the surface. And one of the things I asked her about was, kind of how her job search was going and what kind of feedback she was getting. And her response was incredible to me. She said that for the most part, she had a degree that it wasn't necessarily programming, but seemed to have the acumen to get it done, but was told consistently that she would make a much better salesperson or recruiter because of the way she looked. And guess what? She was fairly attractive, blonde, young lady. And so it was kind of like, oh yeah, you could program, but you'd be a really good recruiter. You'd be a really great salesperson. And I said, how did that make you feel? And she said, it made me more determined to apply to these jobs. And I get choked up every time I talk about it, more determined to apply for these IT jobs than ever before. And that was, to me, I was like, boom, X factor. You are hired right now. I didn't even call the other person. I was like, you know what? The job is yours. This is the exact kind of person I want on my staff. So being able to step out and ask those questions and being comfortable to ask those questions allowed me to hire somebody that was incredible, that's gone on to have a great career in our industry. And, if you're not open to it, then you're not going to see that. So that, to me, was why we have to be more open and more, have the ability to hear these voices and see these people.
I just we had an episode of Coffee Talk a few weeks back with Jennifer Bonifant, and what a powerhouse. And one of the things that she talked about in the episode was not hiding behind your intelligence, to step out and own it, become an expert in something, and, let that kind of guide you. And she teaches at, industry events across the country, and I've always respected her for her deep knowledge, and to find out, that's kind of a platform for her career and the way that she's built her career. I hear stories like that, Bobby, and you saw my reaction immediately. I'm like, oh, triggered, like, boxing gloves come out.
Yeah.
But that's a familiar story, but it's not just women.
We come into an interaction and immediately start making, and compartmentalizing judgments about people, good or bad. I mean, it's not always a bad thing, like, but just anytime you start to formalize an idea of who a person is, what they can do, without really opening up and listening and understanding, to me, that's where I find value in stepping back and just letting it evolve and be organic and figure out what truly is the situation. And you're right, it's not just females, it's anything. It's not just accessibility. I'm a short person. You've met me. I was much shorter when I was a kid and growing up, and I love the game of football. Love it. I mean, it was my favorite sport, and I wanted to play football from the time I can remember. And my mom took me down to the little league and enrolled me, and I played the football. And at the end of the season, the coach told my mom, and I could hear it, and I can still hear it, that if she didn't want me to die and get injured, that she should shift me over to something else like baseball, where it was more safe for a person my size. And you know what? That pissed me off. I mean, at a young kid, I remember it, Kate, and it wasn't like I thought about it every time I went on the field and I didn't have that guy's picture in my face, but it's the reality of just somebody making a snap decision, not knowing what a person's potential could be or giving them the opportunity to find that potential, that it just, I think you put your organization, your situation at risk of maybe giving up on something that could be great. So
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
that's my pitch for always being open to everybody and listening and understanding and having that space to do it.
Well, you've started a really great, I call it programming. Like you've set a really great set of programming, Diverse Minds. I'm really excited to be joining with the Diverse Minds crew to talk more about women and give a space for women to come together to talk, and men. Like I talk about women, but it's also men. We need allies.
Here
Like
across the
have,
board, how many women have had
yes,
male mentorship? So it's not just, it really isn't a bashing. It's not something where, hey,
not at
let's get
all.
together and bash everybody that doesn't like diversity, or it's more about just, it's not that. It's taking the high road of just education and excelling a person's ability to feel like they're a part of something.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I say hats off to my boss, Wade Tetsuka, because he has there's two other men that work with us. Otherwise, he is surrounded by women. The poor guy, and he's such a champion and such an ally for women. And if you've met him, like what a great guy. But we do need allies, and since I've started talking about women in tech more and more and have kind of become a bigger voice for it in our community, I've gotten so many messages from men in our community. They're like, what can I do to partner with you to help you spread your message? I'm like, come on my podcast. That's a great start. Come on my podcast and tell me your experiences. I mean, we all have significant women in our lives, whether it be, partners or mothers. We all have a mother,
Sometimes it's
sisters, and
grandma,
children.
mom, and aunt. There's you find a lot of powerful female figures that have changed the
Yeah.
course of a person's life, male or female.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really thrilled to partner with you this year and or next year and talk more about that and give people a space to tell their story and inspire others. I've seen that so much even with Coffee Talk, the conversations that we're able to start in the community because of this. It's just like it just opens the door for people to be like, "Oh my gosh, well, I'm doing that too," or "I'm seeing that too." And it's a conversation starter. So, if someone's listening and wants to jump in and help out this week to get in and start helping with Doug, with the community, what do you
Yeah.
think?
The cool thing is, if you're listening to this podcast, you're doing it already. Like the first thing is to, if you're uncomfortable even with the term DEI, or you're uncomfortable, speaking up in situations, coming to something like this, putting yourself into a situation where you slowly get more comfortable speaking up, talking about it, to me is the first step. You're getting in, and I've seen it happen just slowly over the course of even the last year. Somebody who just could barely speak up at a webinar or a meetup or an in-person, but now being a champion voice and being really confident. Reflect back to my journey. It's like you've got to start somewhere and just, to understand where people are coming from so that you can understand how to help them. So getting past whatever it is that makes you uncomfortable about this, finding that, you know, these kind of forums where you can hear from folks and get to hear their story. So you get to understand where they're coming from. I think it makes you that much more able to start to do that in the moment when you see things going awry, or you want to help somebody and support them literally in the moment when something's not working out the way it should for a group of folks and a community level. And this helps you to do the other thing that's just important across the board in our world today is to get past what you think you know about something. So you've read some headlines, or you're stuck in that headline mode, which is where we are as a society. This is what Instagram does to us. It's what it's there, and those are all great fun tools. But if you're not careful, you're just stuck on what they want you to see as far as headlines and thought evoking words that don't mean anything unless you dig a little deeper. So what you're doing by watching Kate or by attending a Diverse Minds or going to the Women in Tech Luncheon at Summit is you're opening yourself up to that next level of learning, which gives you more ammunition. So that's how you start. You've just got to start and keep adding to it. And, again, and diversify that thought process. So it's not just women in tech, but, you know, all types of prejudice and all types of,
Mm.
walks of life coming
Mhm.
together to understand their position. Again, you may not agree with all of them and all the different aspects. It's way too broad to feel like that's ever going to be the case. We have, topping billions of population that we can't all agree on everything. You're going to like fried food and I'm going to like grilled food. And that's the way it's going to be. But we'll agree on something to eat at the end of the day, as long as we're open to talking and understanding where we're coming from. So that's, getting started, watching these, and you'll find your moment where you're comfortable stepping up and being a part of the conversation more fully, and then it'll fly.
Yeah, you just hosted or Diverse Minds just hosted a webinar on neurodiversity, and what an engaging hour.
Mm,
Like the hour was up in a second, and I
yeah,
learned so much just in that. That's not a part of my everyday life, but I learned so much in how to show respect in communication, respect in just being around someone that may be neurodivergent in an effective way to communicate. And that is such a big part of it. So being curious about other humans, I think is such a unlock
yeah.
for this. Um, and just generally wanting to show respect to others. Bobby, thank you again for coming on to Coffee Talk today. And thank you for opening up the road of this conversation. It's such an important one for us to have. Diversity is truly an engine for innovation and connection. And I'm so thankful for all that you're doing in the community. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to add?
Again, thank you. I mean, it's awesome to see, meet and see people like you coming up and grabbing hands and doing that, because that's the important part is that we're bringing other folks along. To me, if I had to leave with anything, it's when we do this, if we come at it with the opportunity to listen and educate and not necessarily try to change a person's mind, we can meet anybody anywhere. When you roll into a conversation like I'm going to change your mind today, it's likely not going to happen. But if we roll into a conversation trying to understand each other, then I think eventually we'll get to a better place together. Whether or not it's there, it's going to be somewhere above where we started. That's my goal. As I learn and kind of evolve my own process around doing this.
Bobby, I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. That's really good. That's really good. That's the quote of the day. I will add Bobby's LinkedIn in the show notes and also the link to the Diverse Minds meetup. I'll put all of that information, more information about Doug will all be in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us for Coffee Talk. Until next time, keep loving,
Yep.
keep including.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you for joining us today on Coffee Talk. A special thanks to my guests for sharing their story and to you, the listener, for being a part of this conversation. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a Monday morning chat. Until next time, I'm Kate Coffey-Bacon, and this has been Coffee Talk.